Chapter 7 of The Mystery of Mary by Grace Livingston Hill. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leanne Howlett. 3 days later, Tryon Dunham entered the office of Judge Blackwell by appointment. After the business was completed, the judge said with a smile, "Well, our mystery is solved. The little girl is all safe. She telephoned me just after you had left the other day and sent her maid after her hat. It seems that while she stood by the window, looking down into the street, she saw an automobile containing some of her friends. It stopped at the next building. Being desirous of speaking with a girl friend who was seated in the auto, she hurried out to the elevator, hoping to catch them. The elevator boy who took her downstairs went off duty immediately, which accounts for our not finding any trace of her, and he was kept at home by illness the next morning. The young woman caught her friends, and they insisted that she should get in and ride to the station with one of them, who was leaving the city at once. They loaned her a veil and a wrap, and promised to bring her right back for her papers and other possessions, but the train was late, and when they returned the building was closed. The two men who called for her were her brother and a friend of his, it seems. I must say they were not so attractive as she is. However, the mystery is solved, and I got well laughed at by my wife for my fears." But the young man was puzzling how this all could be if the hat belonged to the girl he knew, to Mary. When he left the judge's office, he went to his club, determined to have a little quiet for thinking it over. Matters at home had not been going pleasantly. There had been an ominous cloud over the breakfast table. The bill for the hat had arrived from Madame Dollard's, and Cornelia had laid it impressively by his plate. Even his mother had looked at him with a glance that spoke volumes, as she remarked that it would be necessary for her to have a new raincoat before another storm came. There had been a distinct coolness between Tryon Dunham and his mother and sister ever since the morning when the loss of the hat and raincoat was announced. Or did it date from the evening of that day, when both mother and sister had noticed the beautiful ring which he wore? They had exclaimed over the flash of the diamond and its peculiar pureness and brilliancy, and Cornelia had been quite disagreeable when he refused to take it off for her to examine. He had replied to his mother's question by saying that the ring belonged to a friend of his. He knew his mother was hurt by the answer, but what more could he do at present? True, he might have taken the ring off and prevented further comment, but it had come to him to mean loyalty to and belief in the girl whom he had so strangely been permitted to help. It was therefore in deep perplexity that he betook himself to his club and sat down in a far corner to meditate. He was annoyed when the office boy appeared to tell him there were some packages awaiting him in the office. "Bring them to me here, Henry." The boy hustled away and soon came back, bearing 2 hat boxes, one of them in a crate, and the heavy leather suitcase. With a start of surprise, Dunham sat up in his comfortable chair. "Say, Henry, those things ought not to come in here." He glanced anxiously about, and was relieved to find that there was only one old gentleman in the room, and that he was asleep. "Suppose we go up to a private room with them. Take them out to the elevator, and I'll come in a moment." "All right, sir." "And say, Henry, suppose you remove that crate from the box. Then it won't be so heavy to carry." "All right, sir. I'll be there in just a minute." The young man hurried out to the elevator, and he and Henry made a quick ascent to a private room. He gave the boy a round fee, and was left in quiet to examine his property. As he fumbled with the strings of the first box, his heart beat wildly, and he felt the blood mounting to his face. Was he about to solve the mystery which had surrounded the girl in whom his interest had now grown so deep that he could scarcely get her out of his mind for a few minutes at a time? But the box was empty, save for some crumpled white tissue paper. He took up the cover in perplexity, and saw his own name written by himself. Then he remembered. This was the box he had sent down to the club by the cabman, to get it out of his way. He felt disappointed and turned quickly to the other box and cut the cord. This time he was rewarded by seeing the great black hat, beautiful and unhurt in spite of its journey to Chicago. The day was saved, and also the reputation of his mother's maid. But was there no word from the beautiful stranger? He searched hurriedly through the wrappings, pulled out the hat quite unceremoniously, and turned the box upside down, but nothing else could he find. Then he went at the suitcase. Yes, there was the raincoat. He took it out triumphantly, for now his mother could say nothing, and moreover, was not his trust in the fair stranger justified? He had done well to believe in her. He began to take out the other garments, curious to see what had been there for her use. A long golden brown hair nestling on the collar of the bathrobe gleamed in a chance ray of sunlight. He looked at it reverently, and laid the garment down carefully that it might not be disturbed. As he lifted the coat, he saw the little note pinned to the lapel and seized it eagerly. Surely this would tell him something. But no, there was only the message that she had arrived safely and her thanks. Stay, she had signed her name, Mary. She had told him he might call her that. Could it be that it was her real name, and that she had meant to trust him with so much of her true story? He pondered the delicate writing of the note, thinking how like her it seemed. Then he put the note in an inner pocket, and thoughtfully lifted out the evening clothes. It was then that he touched the silken-lined cloth of her dress, and he drew back almost as if he had ventured roughly upon something sacred. Startled, awed, he looked upon it, and then with gentle fingers lifted it and laid it upon his knee. Her dress! The one she had worn to the dinner with him! What did it all mean? Why was it here, and where was she? He spread it out across his lap and looked at it almost as if it hid her presence. He touched with curious, wistful fingers the lace and delicate garniture about the waist, as if he would appeal to it to tell the story of her who had worn it. What did its presence here mean? Did it bear some message? He searched carefully, but found nothing further. Had she reached a place of safety where she did not need the dress? No, for in that case, why should she have sent it to him? Had she been desperate, perhaps, but no, he would not think such things of her. Gradually, as he looked, the gown told its own story, as she had thought it would. How she had been obliged to put on a disguise, and this was the only way to hide her own dress. Gradually he came to feel a great pleasure in the fact that she had trusted him with it. She had known he would understand, and perhaps had not had time to make further explanation. But if she had need of a disguise, she was still in danger. Oh, why had she not given him some clue? He dropped his head upon his hand in troubled perplexity. A faint perfume of violets stole upon his senses from the dress lying across his knee. He touched it tenderly, and then half shamefacedly lay his cheek against it, breathing in the perfume. But he put it down quickly, looking quite foolish, and reminded himself that the girl was still a stranger, and that she might belong to another. Then he thought again of the story the judge had told him, and of his own first conviction that the two young women were identical. Could that be? Why could he not discover who the other girl was, and get someone to introduce him? He resolved to interview the judge about it at their next meeting. In the meantime he must wait and hope for further word from Mary. Surely she would write him again, and claim her ring perhaps, and as she had been so thoughtful about returning the hat and coat at once, she would probably return the money he had loaned her. At least he would hear from her in that way. There was nothing to do but be patient. Yet there was the immediate problem of how he should restore his sister's hat and his mother's coat to their places, unsuspected. With a sigh, he carefully folded up the cloth gown, wrapped it in folds of tissue paper from the empty hat box, and placed it in his suitcase. Then he transferred the hat to its original box, rang the bell, and ordered the boy to care for the box and suitcase until he called for them. During the afternoon he took occasion to run into the Judge's office about some unimportant detail of the business they were transacting, and as he was leaving he said, "By the way, Judge, who was your young woman who gave you such a fright by her sudden disappearance? You never told me her name. Is she one of my acquaintances, I wonder?" "Oh, her name is Mary Weston," said the Judge, smiling. "I don't believe you know her, for she was from California, and was visiting here only for a few days. She sailed for Europe the next day." That closed the incident, and so far as the mystery was concerned, only added perplexity to it. Dunham purposely remained downtown, merely having a clerk telephone home for him that he had gone out of the city and would not be home until late, so they need not wait up. He did this because he did not wish to have his mother or his sister ask him any more questions about the missing hat and coat. Then he took a 20-mile trolley ride into the suburbs and back, to make good his word that he had gone out of town, and all the way he kept turning over and over the mystery of the beautiful young woman, until it began to seem to him that he had been crazy to let her drift out into the world alone and practically penniless. The dress had told its tale. He saw, of course, that if she were afraid of detection, she must have found it necessary to buy other clothing, and how could she have bought it with only $9.75? He now felt convinced that he should have found some way to cash a check and thus supply her with what she needed. It was terrible. True, she had those other beautiful rings, which were probably valuable, but would she dare to sell them? Perhaps, though, she had found someone else as ready as he had been to help her. But to his surprise, that thought was distasteful to him. During his long, cold ride in solitude, he discovered that the thing he wanted most in life was to find that girl again and take care of her. Of course, he reasoned with himself most earnestly from one end of the trolley line to the other, and called himself all kinds of a fool, but it did not the slightest particle of good. Underneath all the reasoning, he knew he was glad that he had found her once, and he determined to find her again and to unravel the mystery. Then he sat looking long and earnestly into the depths of the beautiful white stone she had given to him, as if he might there read the way to find her. A little after midnight he arrived at the club house, secured his suitcase and the hat box, and took a cab to his home. He left the vehicle at the corner, lest the sound of it waken his mother or sister. He let himself silently into the house with his latchkey, and tiptoed up to his room. The light was burning low. He put the hat box in the farthest corner of his closet, then he took out the raincoat, and slipping off his shoes, went softly down to the hall closet. In utter darkness he felt around and finally hung the coat on a hook under another long cloak, then gently released the hanging loop and let the garment slip softly down in an inconspicuous heap on the floor. He stole upstairs as guiltily as if he had been a naughty boy stealing sugar. When he reached his room he turned up his light, and pulling out the hat box, surveyed it thoughtfully. This was a problem which he had not yet been able to solve. How should he dispose of the hat so that it would be discovered in such a way as to cast no further suspicion upon the maid? How would it do to place the hat in the hall closet back among the coats? No, it might excite suspicion to find them together. Could he put it in his own closet and profess to have found it there? No, for that might lead to unpleasant questioning, and perhaps involve the servants again. If he could only put it back where he had found it. But Cornelia, of course, would know it had not been there in her room all this week. It would be better to wait until the coast was clear and hide it in Cornelia's closet, where it might have been put by mistake and forgotten. It was going to be hard to explain, but that was the best plan he could evolve. He took the hat out and held it on his hand, looking at it from different angles, and trying to remember just how the girl had looked out at him from under its drooping plumes. Then with a sigh he laid it carefully in its box again and went to bed. The morning brought clearer thought, and when the summons to breakfast pealed through the hall, he took the box boldly in his hand and descended to the dining room, where he presented the hat to his astonished sister. "I am afraid I am the criminal, Cornelia," he said in his pleasantest manner. "I'm sorry I can't explain just how this thing got on my closet shelf. I must have put it there myself through some unaccountable mix-up. It's too bad I couldn't have found it before and so saved you a lot of worry. But you are one half the richer for it, for I paid the bill yesterday. Please accept it with my compliments." Cornelia exclaimed with delight over the recovered hat. "But how in the world could it have got into your closet, Tryon? It was impossible. I left it in my room. I know I did, for I spoke to Nora about it before I left. How do you account for it?" "Oh, I don't attempt to account for it," he said, with a gay wave of his hand. "I've been so taken up with other things this past week, I may have done almost anything. By the way, Mother, I'm sure you'll be glad to hear that Judge Blackwell has made me a most generous offer of business relations, and that I have decided to accept it." Amid the exclamations of delight over this bit of news, the hat was forgotten for a time, and when the mother and sister finally reverted to it and began to discuss how it could have gotten on the closet shelf, he broke in upon their questions with a suggestion. "I should advise, Mother, that you make a thorough search for your raincoat. I am sure now that you must have overlooked it. Such things often happen. We were so excited the morning Cornelia missed the hat that I suppose no one looked thoroughly." "But that is impossible, Tryon," said his mother with dignity. "I had that closet searched most carefully." "Nevertheless, Mother, please me by looking again. That closet is dark, and I would suggest a light." "Of course, if you wish it," said his mother stiffly. "You might look yourself." "I'm afraid I shall not have time this morning," professed the coward. "But suppose you look in your own closets too, Mother. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. It couldn't get out of the house of itself, and Nora is no thief. The idea is preposterous. Please have it attended to carefully to-day. Good-bye. I shall have to hurry downtown, and I can't tell just what time I shall get back this evening. 'Phone me if you find the coat anywhere. If you don't find it, I'll buy you another this afternoon." "I shall not find the raincoat," said his mother sternly. "But of course I will look to satisfy you. I know it is not in this house." He beat a hasty retreat, for he did not care to be present at the finding of the raincoat. "There is something strange about this," said Mrs. Dunham, as with ruffled dignity she emerged from the hall closet, holding her lost raincoat at arm's length. "You don't suppose your brother could be playing some kind of a joke on us, do you, Corny? I never did understand jokes." "Of course not," said practical Cornelia with a sniff. "It's my opinion that Nora knows all about the matter, and Tryon has been helping her out with a few suggestions." "Now, Cornelia, what do you mean by that? You surely don't suppose your brother would try to deceive us, his mother and sister?" "I didn't say that, Mother," answered Cornelia with her head in the air. "You've got your raincoat back, but you'd better watch the rest of your wardrobe. I don't intend to let Nora have free range in my room any more." Chapter 7